This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome, everyone, to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Kirsten. Hey, Kirsten, how's it going?
How are you? Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Been a nice day so far, and now I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. I've been like looking forward to this ever since the last time when I had to cancel on you. So thank you. Thanks for being okay with that and allowing me to come back.
Of course, yeah, there was a Christmas party out there or something like that, right?
Yes, it was like a last minute Christmas party that they didn't plan very well and it was kind of all put together and it was nice in the end. But yeah, I had to shift some things around. So thank you.
No worries at all. Um, so yeah, to get us started, if you just want to introduce yourself to the people. Tell us a little bit about your life, your journey. Yeah, anything you want to share.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think has really made me who I am today is that I grew up overseas. And so my father actually worked for a corporation out in Chicago that built hydroelectric dams and irrigation systems for developing countries. And as a result of that, I ended up spending several years in Guyana and South America, came back to the States for a little bit, and then I went to Pakistan, Lahore, Pakistan for 4 years when I was a kid. And that has really shaped my entire life. I have to say that I love meeting strangers. I love meeting people from other cultures. I just have this unquenchable thirst to experience the world. And I always blame my parents because they dragged me all over the place. My father took me when I graduated high school to Bangkok and Bangladesh for 3 weeks. I've been to the Maldives. I've been to Sri Lanka. I've been to so many places that, albeit are a little strange and off the beaten path of maybe islands or Europe, but I got to see the world in a way that a lot of kids don't. And so because of that, I've been in love with myths and fairy tales and how humans create meaning in the world. And I've read books my entire life. If I find a fairy tale from one part of the world, I run over, I grab it, I buy it, or I borrow it from a friend. I just want to know about other people and how they create stories in the world. I'm an artist. And so knowing all these fables and these myths, they really help me with my writing that I do, with the storytelling that I do, with the screenwriting that I do. I have my podcast, Bite Sized Blessings, where I interview everyone under the sun about the magical or miraculous moments in their lives. But really, all of these projects and all of these things, I mean, I have a master's of divinity as well. I'm a panentheist. And so, what that means is that I think the sacred is in everything, that everything has consciousness and is alive to us. I'm a romantic at heart. And I'd have to say that my endless curiosity about the world, about meeting other people, about learning things about other countries, other cities, all started in my childhood. I can't stop, won't stop with being curious about the world.
Cool. So yeah, there was a lot of things in there that I definitely want to go into more detail later on. But I think the best way to start is if we kind of do it chronologically. So um, growing up overseas. So you mentioned two overall destinations where you were, which was Guyana, South America, and then it was Pakistan. So maybe if you just want to take us back to those experiences growing up, being a child, and being in a country where I suppose you didn't speak the native language. So
Oh, yeah.
how was that for you as a child?
Honestly, in both places, I didn't know any better. I didn't know that life was supposed to be different. And I've said this many times that the culture shock for me as a white American was when I came back to America.
Mm.
because I had been in these multicultural places with people of every religion, every kind of skin color, these cosmopolitan places that were really so beautiful and rich and filled with incredible art, incredible food, all of this stuff. And, I went
Mm.
to a school in Pakistan with kids from all over the world. Nobody cared what we ate for dinner at night. Nobody cared what religion you worshiped. We just wanted to play soccer and have fun. And so my great heartbreak, which I figured out later in life, was being brought back to the States because suddenly everyone was white and it was just outside of Chicago. Everyone was white. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But when you're a kid and you're used to, being in a place that's so rich and abundant with just visual feast for the senses and just all of these layers that you have to peel back to get to know the place. And then you come to a suburb outside of Chicago where everybody kind of wears the same thing. They all bring the same thing to lunch. They all kind of, I don't know, they all speak the same language. I was just totally gobsmacked and flabbergasted. And I actually had to do fourth grade again because I could not adjust. So I did fourth grade
Mm.
twice, everybody. Yes, I'm letting you all know that. But I just really, I could not adjust. And so those childhoods that I had in both of those places, they were so gorgeous and beautiful and talk about just getting to know the world, just in school. I mean, I had Canadians, Vietnamese kids, Germans. I had everyone you could imagine. And so it was a very rich childhood filled with really rich friendships. And then I came back to the States and I was like, I'm sorry, this is what is this? And, it took me a long time to adjust. And I always say that, it didn't help that on the first day, my mother sent us to school in our Pakistani clothing. So we were, like, in Illinois, in this small town,
Mm.
and she sent us to school in Pakistani clothing, and it did not win me over any friends. I just have to say that.
Yeah, it actually sounds to me like you were very lucky because, I mean, not putting any values on it, but I feel like, it's but like you said, for a lot of people, that's the normal upbringing, and for them, the Chicago and suburban lifestyle would be normal. So, I
Yeah.
feel like, and just from my personal opinion and experience as well, because I'm also just a very curious person, and I just find it so interesting and also helpful to talk with as many people as possible and like take in different cultures and see like different perspectives. So to be able to kind of have that very early on and then realizing, oh, I kind of want to put myself in an environment where this is more regular, where I can conversate with people from different cultures. So in that regard, that's when you kind of realized, yeah, I need the different perspectives. I want the multicultural. I want the different everything, basically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of really created me this desire to get to know the world and kind of
Mm.
in my own little way get to know as many people as possible in it. It's slow going. I haven't really met everyone in the entire world yet, but I still have that desire because I think that humans are, they have the potential to be such enchanting, magical creatures, and I just love getting to know people. So yeah, yeah, I was basically ruined forever with that childhood.
Yeah, it's that's also another way to put it. Um, what would you say? Because I also want to hear from your perspective. What is the most valuable thing that you get out of traveling and like talking
Mhm.
with people from different cultures? What does it do for you?
Well, I'm always really open-hearted, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing. And it's not that I'm naive or that I overly trust people, but I have really good intuition. And I'm always really
Mm.
careful about where I go, if I'm in a safe place, when I travel. But I would have to say my superpower for when I travel is I really love meeting people. It's the people who make the trip for me. And, you know, a lot of people don't like to go to certain countries or they don't like to go during certain times of the year, wherever it is, all over the world, wherever that may be. But for me, I just trust the process. I trust the journey. I know that it's going to turn out okay and that I will have the experiences that I'm supposed to have. And always what is made, I can go see architecture, I can go see art, I can go to an incredible restaurant, but end of the day, what makes it for me is the people, because it's those interactions with strangers that really color the trip in ways that are incredibly beautiful. And so that's pretty much the gold for me there in any trip is who am I going to meet and what kind of experience or conversation are we going to have together?
Right. Um, Another thing that I found interesting in the way you described everything up to so far is um, you said that you are a huge fan of myths, fairy tales, storytelling in general. So, how do you also look for and find this magicalness, if that's a word, in your everyday life, in your travels? How does that come into it as well?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm a little bit addicted to it. Okay. So
Hmm,
just going to put that out there. But also, I find that a lot of experiences are so curated these days. Like I know people who go on safaris where every minute is planned for 3 weeks or 2 weeks.
right,
And me, I'm like, oh my God, no, I can't do that because I really believe in synchronicity and serendipity in any travel experience or
right,
even in my daily life. I have told people that you never know what each day is gonna bring, and you never know when you're gonna have the day that maybe changes your life forever. And so when you wake up in the morning and you're still kinda lying in bed, waking up, and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I have to get out of bed." I also try to think, "Kirsten, you don't know who you're gonna meet today. You don't know what kind of experience you're gonna have. You don't know what kind of huge gift maybe is waiting for you today." Now look, I'm not like that every day. I don't, like, just roll out of bed and I'm super excited and I'm like, "Go attack the world," but just the idea for me that I might have some sort of experience that is potentially life altering is exciting for me. And I think because I orient myself that way to the world or to reality, those things tend to happen for me.
right,
Um, especially when I travel. Um, yeah, like when I walked the Camino, I had several experiences that were kind of mind blowing and also just incredibly beautiful. I walked alone in France and we can talk about that later, but yeah, I had some experiences that were that helped me to understand that I was on the right path. Um, I I think it's all about how you orient yourself to your day or to your trip. And if you orient yourself with faith that things are going to work out, that things are going to be good, it's going to be an adventure, that is what is going to happen. And that's what's happened for me over and over and over again. And I do believe it's because of my relationship with life, that I just have this unwavering faith that it's going to be magical. If that answers your question at all.
no, it definitely definitely does. And I do want to ask you about the Camino, definitely as well. But before I do, I also have a follow up on that one because you also mentioned something when you were talking about the myths and the fairy tales, and kind of when you were talking about how you were aiming for the magical and basically having a faith that things work out as well. You were talking about how you were super interested in how humans find meaning. So that's obviously a super interesting topic. And it sounds like you have found a way for yourself. So how was your journey with that whole thing in your life, but also being observant and talking with other people, just in learning more about that in general, about how humans find meaning.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's so many different ways, right? Because I found meaning growing up with my parents and experiencing all these different religions and cultures. And I use that still to define who I am and a major part of my life. But a lot of people find meaning from the land that they grow up on, the history of the land, or meaning, you know, through their neighbors, their friends. Um, there's so many different ways to kind of to I don't know, define one's world or one's place within the world, or the space that one is occupying and will occupy in the future. And you have to know that I've had a very contentious relationship with life and my path because, you know, I talk a good game, but a lot of it has been really dark and really challenging and very hard. And so I've had to come out of that. And there were years when I lived in Portland, Oregon, where all I did was work and it never, the sun like rarely shines there. So just picture me going to work for like 15 to 20 years in the rain and the cold and what have you, just doing my thing and paying my mortgage. But then something about my life started to change and I felt compelled to get a master's of divinity, and it did feel like something that was part and parcel of my life that I've done my entire life. Like in every lifetime I've lived, I've always gotten a master's of divinity. I've always shown up for that. You have to know that I'm also a bibliophile. I love books more than anything, so much so that I got banned from the library in junior high because
Oh,
they
nice.
felt that I was not forming friends. And so they had this intervention for me, and I got banned from the library and forced to go to recess. So I've always had this affinity for books. Um, and that goes to my favorite character in most books is Trickster. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Trickster at all. Trickster is, kind of the little character in every book that is, is there to shake up some change, that's there to, like,
Mm.
make the plot move forward, and, sometimes Trickster does things that are good for the protagonist, and sometimes Trickster, upends an entire person's idea of what the world is. So Trickster's always been one of my fondest kind of like loves. And it wasn't until I read this book by Lewis Hyde called Trickster Makes This World that I understood that Trickster really is at the root of all change and all creation. So I have a huge affinity for Trickster. And so that having that relationship with Trickster helps me to understand now that maybe when things don't go my way, maybe when things are negative, maybe when something bad happens, is it really bad? You know, is it really bad? It could just be Trickster, shaking things up and making me move or making me orient somewhere where I really need to be. Or maybe keep making me face in a direction that I really need. Maybe my concentration needs to be over there. My attention needs to be over there. So, life can be, I mean, of course, we all know it's ups and downs, right? Major
Cool.
ups, maybe major downs. And now I just view it as, oh, like what needed to be changed here? What needed to be, how did I need to be shook up in this situation? Maybe I wasn't looking in the right place. It's been a really challenging road. It's been a really hard road. It's been a road that's been fraught with a lot of tears, frankly, and a lot of, being stubborn and being a jerk, frankly. I can be a jerk when I want to be a jerk, of me not, paying attention to the universe, the signs, paying attention to what direction I should be facing. But then I realized it was easier if I acquiesced and just said, okay, let's see what this really is and let's see if I can work with it. I hope, did I even answer your question? I feel like maybe I got off on a tangent there.
Oh, well, it was super interesting though. I already forgot my question, to be honest. But
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
no, it was the perfect answer though. Because I definitely agreed with everything you said as well. Though because I personally also believe that everything happens for a reason. And I definitely think that there's a flow in the path, and that you can tell if you're on it and if you're not. So yeah, that's why I really liked the answer to the question that I already forgot. um,
Uh, Thank goodness.
so um, yeah, I yeah, we can make the transition here maybe to storytelling as well, because that was kind of part of what you were saying as well. And you really enjoying books and enjoying stories, um, myths, fairy tales, all that kind of stuff. How was your because you were telling us about the trickster and how you incorporated that into your life, but you also being an artist, how how was how was your personal journey with, yeah, just the aspect of storytelling and figuring out how to do that in an entertaining way, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a fascinating story. So we lived overseas, came back to the States. Within 2 or 3 years, my parents got divorced. They had like one of the worst divorces Kane County courthouse had ever seen. It took forever, like over 2 years. It was really acrimonious. And so, I was the eldest with two younger kids, and our home life was not good. And so I've said this before that, when I was a kid, really little, up until we came back to the States, life was very rich for me, full of fairy tales, full of magic, full of wonder. But then once that divorce started happening and everything else started happening, I had to put all that stuff away. I mean, it all had to get shut down. Yes, I love books. Yes, I won some writing competitions when I was a kid in Chicago. But, that was never it was always high school and then college for me. It was never going to be a vocation choice. Like being an artist, it was never like an actual serious role, to be honest, in my family. Like, what is that? Like, who knows what that is? And so then, I start divinity school. In my first quarter, they give me the 700 question, 3-part personality test that I had to fill out. And I was like, good God, because they just wanted to know if we were in the right program. And so when I met with the gentleman afterwards, he said, "I need to tell you you're in the wrong program." And I said, "What?" And he said, you should be getting a master's of theology." And I was like, I really firmly feel I'm supposed to get a master's of divinity. I don't know what that's about, but I kind of feel compelled that that's what I'm supposed to do. And he said, "Okay." He said, "Well, let me go over your results here. Okay, so you are an artist." And he said, "Look at this." And like the profile for artist was so huge, like, that's my motivation, and my jaw just dropped, and I thought, "What?" And then he said, "And second is science and technology for you," which makes sense because 'cause I've read science magazines ever since I was a kid. I, like, love science more than anything. And so here I am with this gentleman, and he's very nice, but he's like, "You're an artist, like, you're supposed to be doing art." But he said, "Let me tell you something, according to all these other results here on this test, on all these questions in this test, you are not going to be able to live into what you're supposed to do, an artist, until you learn to break the rules, because you're all about being safe, keeping yourself safe, doing anything that's safe. Art is not about being safe." And I mean, I just got off the meeting with him and I thought, what is happening? I mean, I was just like, I can't even believe this. This is totally bonkers. What? I don't even know if this test is real or right, but I'm not sure what just happened. And so then I go through divinity school. I go through my 3 years. I take a year off because I need to cultivate relationships in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I live, to then do my internship because I needed two mentors that were going to need to spend a lot of time with me. And I just didn't have the relationships yet for that. So I took a year off. And so then there I am doing my internship, and COVID hits in the middle of, um, you know, my internship, which was good and bad, but I did graduate. But in the interim, since, you know, this gentleman, I had been thinking of ideas and stories and all sorts of stuff my entire life, but never done anything with it. Had it all in the back burner. Was like, this isn't real. Like, none of this is real. But when he came back to me with that result, it kind of over time gave me permission to actually do these things that a lot of people feel aren't real work and step into or carry the mantle of quote unquote artist. And so, COVID hit, here I am, like graduate from seminary, no jobs because COVID's still happening. And that's when like the gates just open. And I wrote my web series, Murder of Two. I started my podcast. I'm rewriting the Peter Rabbit book series, and I've written like 7 or 8 in that series. I mean, literally within like a 6-month period, all of this poured out of me. And it
Mm.
really did take the answers to that test. I needed those answers. I needed to be told that's who I was at my heart because I'd been resisting it for so long. Thank God for that 700 question test. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, it really like your life really is a testament to like the science the universe gives and how it's trying to put people on their path. And well, thankfully, it did because I feel like with anything creative, but also just in general things that are not considered like a normal job, it can always be very difficult for people to really pursue it, even if they know they have a passion for it. But um, I feel like, yeah, that's just a little bit of a societal hindrance sometimes because people might feel like, is this what I should be doing? Is this what I am supposed to do? Whatever that even means, like, of what are we even supposed to do? Like, we can do whatever we want, pretty much. But for some reason, there's like this stigma to certain things, and it's like, um, so yeah, I'm glad to hear that you overcome that through that 700 question test.
Yes, yes. Thank goodness.
Um, yeah, before I actually forget to ask about that, and since we are on the topic of things that one should do, I feel like walking the Camino probably. I mean, I don't know the story, but it's something that for me, I was thinking and considering about doing when I was in my early 20s for a very long time. And I also kind of felt like I had to do it, but
Mm.
then I didn't. And then just some other things happened and I hadn't gone around to it. But I feel like that's for everyone who does it, it's always a very defining moment in their lives. And it's always a very great story. So, yeah, I'm just super interested to hear your experience with all that.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know what it was. I had never even heard of it before, and my best friend, the, like, other mom, my second mother passed away, really surprisingly in 2011 from a from her Parkinson's disease. And it was, 2012, and I was really devastated still by the loss of Linda, my dear friend, and really mourning that. And it's really just bizarre how I even ended up walking the Camino. So I'm going to tell you the story.
Mm.
So I go to this feast day outside of Portland for Our Lady of Guadalupe. And the woman sitting next to me at the feast day is a carbon copy of Linda. I mean, down to the jewelry, the hair, everything. It was really eerie. And I remember looking at her thinking, this is just so bizarre. And after the entire event, we ended up talking to each other. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to start the Camino in February." And I thought, what? What is that? And so we talk a little bit, and my partner at the time, he said, "Oh," he was Catholic. He said, "You've never heard of the Camino? Oh my gosh." So he bought me like a couple cheap travel guides and was like, "Hey, just this is what
Uh,
it is because I know you like to learn about it, find out about it." And I looked at it and I thought, "Oh, that's kind of cute. Like that's interesting. I mean, I'm not a hiker, I'm not like a backpacker, I'm not whatever, I'm not religious people. So cute. Nice information. Thank you." And then a few months later, my friend Athea called me and she said, "I just watched this movie that I really loved. And this is back when there were DVDs. Haha, this is so old." And she said, I am buying you this movie and sending it to you. I feel like you need to watch it. I just feel compelled." She's like, "But I'm not gonna tell you anything about it, okay? This is just
Mhm.
gonna be like a surprise for you." So I open up the DVD and it's The Way with Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez, and it's about pilgrims
Right.
walking on the Camino. And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I How odd. I mean, yes, it's cool. Now I actually get to watch a movie about people walking and see what it's like." So I watched it and appreciated it. And then like more months go by and I ended up going to my acupuncturist, I think 6 months later. And out of nowhere, he has me on the table and he said, "Yeah, my mom walked the Camino this year, but she broke her ankle after like 300 miles. And so she had to stop." And I just thought, okay, am I the only person on this planet that doesn't know about the Camino? Like I felt like such a noob. I was like, how is this even possible? But I filed it away and I thought, that's funny that another person brings it up. And then a couple weeks after that, a dear friend of mine was in Kansas cleaning out her mother's study because she was being moved into an Alzheimer's care unit and she hadn't thrown anything away in the study. And so my friend was going through just to see what each paper was it important, what have you. And so she calls me and I can tell that she's like amused with what's going on. She says, um, "I'm gonna mail you something, and I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just feel compelled that I'm supposed to mail this to you." And I said, "Okay." And I get an envelope. She's like, "It's a surprise. I'm not gonna tell you." Get an envelope, open it up, and it's a travel guide for the Camino from the 1960s that she found in her mother's study. And I just thought to myself, "What is happening here?" Okay. I don't know what's happening. This is really weird. I'm a little disturbed. And so whenever I'm freaked out by this, I grab a tarot card. So I pulled one tarot card and it said, "You have not been listening to the messages we've been sending." And I sat on my bed and I thought to myself, "Are you joking?" There was a lot of swearing because I was like, I have a full time job. I have animals. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it like for 3 months. I'm not going on
Right.
some like short thing. I'm doing it full on. And I said, "You want me to walk the Camino? Like, what do you I'm not religious. I am not religious. I don't backpack. What are you even talking about?" So I wrestled with it for a couple of weeks but once I made that decision, I was like, "I'm gonna do this," and I started doing research. Every door blew open that was an obstacle. I mean, a friend said, "I need a place to live for a few months. I'll come and take care of your animals. No problem. I'm all over it." Um, I
Mhm.
found I took a ship from Miami to Barcelona and I did a route that not a lot of people do. I went from southern France all the way up to Bayonne in northern France, and then I started walking along the coastal route because the Le
Mm.
Puy route is known as a party route. And I just didn't, I was like, if I'm going to do this, intentional. I'm going to do this intentionally. And so I picked a route, the Camino Frances, which is known as having a ton of solitude and being very, very physically arduous. Um, and so, I did it. I got there by hook or by crook. I got to southern France and I started walking. France then ended up having the worst weather it had had in 90 years. Lourdes
Oh,
flooded.
wow.
I was covered in mud most days because there was just mud everywhere and it rained the entire time. Most people quit. So you want to talk about a route that's solitary? It was like more than solitary now. It was like no one. So a lot of places, auberges and hostels didn't even bother opening because there were no pilgrims. There was one night I did camp in the French forest because I could not find a place to stay. Um, that was coming out of Montpellier. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, but what can you do? I don't speak French. But yeah, I brought way more than you had to. I brought a tent, a rain fly, I brought a thermarest. My pack was so heavy that people on the route would pick up my pack and laugh at me. And they're like, "Did you bring rocks from Portland,
Yeah.
Oregon? Or what are you carrying?" And I was like, "No, I felt like I would need all of this." And I did. One night I did camp in the forest because there was
Right.
nowhere to go. Um, and so the entire journey it was unbelievable. But to me, just getting there was ridiculous. It was not something I would have ever done at all. Um, but I have to tell you, I've never seen countryside so glorious and beautiful. And there were days when it'd be raining all day and I'd come into the middle of nowhere and there'd be this tiny village and the church was always open. So I would just open the door and go into the church was invariably way warmer than what was going on outside. because it was freezing outside some days, and it would just be lit by candles, and I would just sit in there and maybe eat a little something or just reflect or even just, like, take a rest, right? For half an hour, from all the hiking and walking, and it always felt like such a benediction, so much solace in there, like, to have a place to get out of the rain before you have to go back into the rain. I met incredible people. The French food is, like, ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I lost 20 pounds eating, like, 20 chocolate croissants a day, best diet ever. I would basically go into towns if they had a bakery, I'd just buy multiple because 'cause you're burning so many calories, shove them all in
Yeah.
my pack. And so, yeah, but again, the people. I had so many encounters with people that were, like, beyond magical, that were such a huge gift to me. So, yeah, I had a very wet and very exhausting Camino, but I also had a Camino that was, like, just a time of huge gifts.
That story, of how you got there, that was actually that was an amazing story. But I feel like that is like with most people, like I said, from what I've heard and people that walked it, it is, um, kind of like that. It's a calling. It's kind of a like people are just called to do it. And, um, yeah, that was an amazing story. And because you said you were there and then because you were supposed to be there, but then the weather wasn't like all sunny for you. No, it rained. So what did you take away from that? Having it done and having it finished, and um, basically not having um, well, because it kind of sounded like it was a very hard thing for you, never have backpacked, and it was quite the thing to have done. So how was that after you finished that?
Oh, yeah, well, I never got to Santiago. So what happened was I
Oh.
went up to the northern French coast and then started walking along the Spanish coast, and they said, "Do not walk along, don't walk the Camino in, like, July and August because 'cause it'll be too hot." And I thought, "Oh, I'll be along the beach. I'll be along the coast. I'll be fine." No, was not fine. I stopped going to the bathroom. I got so profoundly dehydrated. I thought I mean, it was really, really bad. You'd think I'd be paying attention to this, but I think I got some sort of dehydration thing. It didn't matter how much water I drank. And so I was on the Spanish coast and I didn't know the Spanish coast is super rugged and crazy. So picture me crawling up the side of this like semi steep cliff on the path, by the way, with the pack on my back. It's like 95 degrees. I mean, I got so sick and I was so dehydrated. I had that whole moment that you see in the movies where I was in these kind of scattered woods on this cliff and I just broke. I broke and I just screamed out into the wilderness. And the second that scream finished, it was like, oh my God, I'm done. Oh my God, my journey's done. Like I came for this was what needed to happen. And the whole thing felt like an initiation rite. It felt like I'd been extended an invitation to walk the Camino through all of these signs, and I could have said no, but I decided to say yes. And so the Camino was really my initiation journey. And once I proved that I was willing to co create with reality or the universe or those old gods or whatever you want to call them, and I showed up for the adventure, they acknowledged me um, it felt like I had done something, first of all, that I'd always walked the Camino. It felt like in every universe and every lifetime, I'd always walked the Camino. But then, I trotted over to a hotel, laid in bed for a week, by the way, trying to rehydrate because I was so, so ill. And then took a ferry to England and went to Plymouth and spent 3 weeks in Cornwall because I took the Queen Mary back from England. I went England to New York, took the Queen Mary because I knew this journey, I wanted to do it intentionally and I wanted to do it slowly. And flying over on a plane, I could never have adjusted in the way that I needed to mentally. I needed that long journey from Miami to Barcelona to get over jet lag, first of all, but also to just kind of understand what kind of thing I was trying to attempt. And I needed that 7 days going across on the Queen Mary to start integrating what had all happened. But I had an incredible experience in Cornwall. I've always had this kind of spirit guide, which I didn't believe in this stuff for a long time. But whenever I'd kind of like try to meditate, this deer would always show up. It was always a deer wearing a business suit, which I thought was really bizarre. And I thought, does anybody else see this? Like, this is the weirdest thing ever. And so one morning I was in Tintagel, which is famously known as King Arthur's like place. And I decided to go to St. Nectan's Glen, which is now a Catholic shrine, but it's an ancient pagan site in Tintagel. And so I got up really, really early because by that time I was waking up so early and I had to walk like 3 miles to get there, which by then was nothing. It was peanuts. And, I walk across all these farmers' fields and then I start entering this copse of woods. And then there's a stream and I notice all these fairy cairns that people have built in the stream, and it's just like an otherworldly place. It's completely enchanting and just surreal. And you go further and further into the woods until you get to this beautiful carved out area where there's a waterfall and trees. And, now since someone owns it, you pay a price, you go down. The trees are just covered with ribbons and prayers that people have left behind, coins in the walls. And so I did my piece and I was walking back and all of a sudden I was on the trail. No one else was on the trail because it was so early. And I just had this compulsion to sit down by the side of the stream. And I thought, okay, I'm going crazy again. But you know what? I've done all of this so far. I don't know what anybody wants from me right now, but I'll go sit on this log by this stream. And I was sitting on the log for about 20 seconds, looking across the stream at the dense woods. And then all of a sudden, out of the woods, this baby deer steps out and it stands there and it's alone. There's no mom, there's no other deer, there's nothing. And the rational part of my mind was like, okay, a deer that small it should not be alone. It should not be by itself. It's too little. But it just stood there in the woods and it just looked at me, just looked at me. And we held each other's eyes for about 30 seconds. And then it just walked back it like disappeared into the undergrowth. And I thought, what is happening here? And then I realized later that it was, my spirit guide came to me and said, good job. You did what we asked and you showed up. And this is where you get to know that all of this is real and that it's all magic all the time. And so that's another part of my journey that I had that affirmation at the end that was really powerful and really beautiful for me.
Um, yeah, I'm just gonna ask the question. I was thinking about how to ask it, but because it's more and more apparent that you are very open and you are very like receptive of these things happening around you. And um like I told you, I also believe that things happen for a reason. Um so my question is, because you said, yeah, my affirmation, I realized it's all magic. Um how do you think people can be more receptive to it? Because obviously, I also believe that if you just go about your life and you ignore these things, you can also believe that it's not. Like I also hold that to be true. But how do you think people can channel into that more? Like how can they be more receptive?
Yeah, I always tell, because I've had friends ask me that. They're like, how does this even start? And I said, look, the easiest way is to just start a conversation with what you can't see. And I think that the universe wants to co-create or work with each and every one of us. The goal is to lift everyone up, right? To help everyone, to make sure that there's enough food for people or shelter or whatever that looks like, school supplies, let alone like school supplies for kids. Like the goal for each and every one of us is we have a job to do in this life. And invariably, it consists of lifting other people up. And what does that look like? It's
Mm,
going to be different for different people. And I'm friends with a lot of 20 somethings, some early 30 somethings, and they're all really struggling and grappling with how do I contribute? What am I here for? And I thought of myself at that age and I was asking the same questions, but I didn't know that, you know what? I could start a conversation. Just so what I suggest to them is, hey, start a relationship. let them know through some action that you're willing to commit to working with the divine, working with that energy, whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to use. Let them know that you're ready to enter into a relationship and say, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that I don't know anything of what I'm talking about, but that you are real and that I want to do good things for other people in this world. So send me a sign. Let me know that you're real, or send me a sign of what path I should take so that I can step forward into a path where I can help other people. But always, like every day, acknowledge that they're there. Say hi. You could be driving to work and just say,
Mhm.
hey, yes, hello, I'm driving my 20-minute drive to work, but it's a beautiful day today, isn't it? I mean, it could just be like your neighbor. Pretend they're your neighbor and say, I am
Right.
so ready for this. Let's start something here. And it doesn't matter if you're a religious, if you're spiritual, it doesn't matter. They will be like excited, and they're like, okay, we should have started this yesterday, but now's a good a time as any.
Um, I also wanted to ask, because we talked about you writing, and with writing and stories as well, that's that's always kind of something I wondered as well. Where do you think, um, or let me ask it a different way, because I'm pretty sure if I say a muse, you know what I'm talking about. So,
Yeah.
do you believe that a lot of the stories that we humans tell each other, that they are actually coming from muses, and that we basically most of our stories are inspired by these other beings?
Yeah, that's a really great question because that's a really big question. And I've never been
I
asked that
guess.
before. And it's really, there are some people who believe that certain messages, certain stories, certain things that need to be told, they come out at the time that they're needed, that people need to hear them. And so it's almost like they emerge or are evoked from the author or the person that is bringing them into the world because people need to hear them. And we need different stories for different people. The same story isn't going to work. Like a Nigerian folktale is not going to work for someone in Georgia
Mm,
in the US. They might have the same moral, they might have the same kind of theme, but cultures are very different. So those stories are going to come out in very different ways. Um, so I really do believe that sometimes there are, because I've heard authors who've written books that have kind of changed people's minds, changed the world, and they have said sometimes, I wrote this in a month, and I don't even know how I wrote it in a month, but it just came out and it was written in a month. And I think in some cases there are um there are happenings where the gods, the muses, whatever kind of energy word you want to use, the energies, they're like, this needs to happen. It needs to happen now and it needs to be out in the world. And so they'll kind of um not not inhabit or possess the person, but they'll prompt them. They'll be like, this needs to, so that the person doesn't have a choice for it coming out. I read a book called The Divine Horseman before I started seminary, and it's by Maya Deren, who's was a cultural anthropologist in the 1940s and 50s, but spent a lot of time in Haiti researching voodoo and the practices, religious practices down there. Her book is incredible. She did some documentary film. She's incredible, but she talks about when they have these ceremonies, these elaborate, beautiful ceremonies, that the god comes down and mounts someone. Like the person becomes the horse, and the god comes in and talks through the human being. And everybody knows it's the god because the person's gestures change, the way they talk, everything changes. And they give advice, they dispense, not medications, but like, oh, maybe you should do this to take care of your affliction or your problem. They just do everything. God is there to answer questions from the community. And I've often thought of writing a little bit like that. It's like sometimes people are mounted like a horse and the God writes through them. And so something can come out fully formed, can come out completely, beautifully complete and finished. But it's because those energies are like, okay, this is what the world needs right now. And this is the way we're going to do it. So so yeah, it's not like a scary, I'm possessed sort of thing. It's more like a gift, a gift from the gods. Like, here are some words, or here's what needs to be heard right now.
Mm, yeah, I definitely think that as well. To bring it maybe back to a little bit more to the human experience. What do you feel like stories in general and just like creating myths, creating fairy tales? What's the value in that to the human society in general? Just telling stories.
Oh my gosh, I think it lifts spirits. I also think stories can teach have great messages. Every story has a theme or a moral in general, if we're being general about it, but those stories can teach people things or maybe suggest another way to view the world, another way to interact with the world. Stories can be world changers. I mean, as we've seen in the US, right? There's like one side telling one story, there's another side telling another story. And never the two shall meet in the middle. So stories can be really destructive at the same time, too. I mean, stories are really meant to change the world. And whether it's the world inside of one human being or it's the world at large out there, they're meant to shift the axis upon which we all stand. That's where Trickster gets important because, Trickster can be a huge benefactor and give great gifts, but he can also usher in periods of complete devastation and the world being completely turned upside down.
If the question is too far reaching, and I mean, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I sometimes feel like, and I want to know your opinion of that, is that basically most, if not all, things that humans do um, are stories we tell each other. Governments are stories. Like societies are stories. I feel like, yeah, we live in a world made up with stories.
Yes, absolutely. And we are our own story, right? What story are we telling about ourselves? I mean, that's something that we have to examine because, we were talking earlier about orienting yourself towards the magic, the synchronicity, the miraculous in the world. Well, what's the story you're telling about yourself that's keeping you from doing that? And how can you change that? I think that's also a part of the process of beginning that conversation with what we can't see. You have to also change your story potentially.
Um, Maybe to take that as well and to address some of the people that might feel like that is them and maybe like you said I mean it sounds like you've had a lot of stages in your life where you were considering paths and you were um figuring out what to do next and especially the one you told us about the Camino where you were like, is this really what you want me to do? And still took you some weeks, you said. So um what would you say to people that kind of have a longing, have a feeling, but yeah, aren't really sure like you said, about their story, they're not really confident in, oh, maybe the story everyone else tells about me is more true than the one I believe myself. Like, what would you say in that position?
Well, that's a really challenging thing to get out of, right? Because it's almost like a prison that society and culture has created for you, but also you're buying into the prison. You're buying into what other people are saying about you. You're buying into how they define you. Because also, in some cases, the way they define you serves them. And so for you not to be the
Mhm.
person that they want you to be, it might make them angry. It might, break their hearts. It might make them upset and not happy with the route that you're taking to live a more authentic life, or what you feel is more your soul's longing, your soul's calling. That can be very divisive in some relationships, friendships, family relationships. And so one of the things I say is, there's that feeling inside of all of us, our North Star, which place our path is supposed to go, where we're being called. And once you start that conversation with those energies that we can't see, with the divine, co creating, once you start that, and you can start it very simply, you can say, "Hey, I'm interested in having a relationship. I would love to co create. Please let me know. Like, send me some signs that this is what you want, or that you're open to this right now." And invariably, it might happen over days, it might happen over weeks, but you have to be open to the synchronicity. So you start that, you start your conversation, you start that relationship building with that, because it indicates to those energies that you're ready and you're open for it. And I think that's really, really essential and important. And so once that happens and you start having these conversations, noticing these synchronicities, then the story of yourself will automatically start changing. And that's what's exciting, because you'll understand that you have way more power and will to break out of these cages, these prisons that other people have put you in, or that how they define you. You now have the freedom to chart your own path, to say, no, this is who I am. No, this is the choice I'm gonna make, and you'll feel brave about it because you're getting ratification in the outside world from the divine, from spirit, and it will begin to slowly, slowly change your conception of the story of who you are, and you'll begin to understand bigger and bigger things about who you are and what you're capable of over time. So none of this is, "I just snap my fingers, it's gonna happen like that." None. It all takes time, and different people have different timelines, but you have to be willing to start the adventure, take the invitation to begin changing your story.
So as we talked a lot about meaning and stuff like that already, or shown through at least in most of our discussion. Um, a question that I usually ask, and I think it fits quite good. Here's one now. Um, a- as you are right now, and having been on your journey, and um, basically at this point in life, wh- what for you yourself makes a happy or fulfilled life? How would you say this is a life that I am fulfilled in, that I'm happy with?
Well, like, it's not that I don't believe in happiness, but it's so fleeting. So I always think about contentment. Like, am I satisfied? Do I have some contentment around where I'm at? And so for me, honestly, I love food. So having delicious food
Mm,
every once in a while, having conversations with dear friends and people that I know really, 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 really love me, that is a good touchstone and a good reminder that I'm on the right path, that this world and this life are worth living. Good dreams. I'm a big dreamer. So having dreams at night and being able to go on fun adventures at night has always
mm,
been lifeblood for me. And then a good book, of course. They had to chisel me out of the library in junior high. So I have
mm.
a stack of books next to my nightstand that I don't know how tall it is, but it's huge. But getting to disappear into a book has always been, I understand that life is good, that it's beautiful. So yeah. Oh, and always, always the next adventure. There's always the next adventure. And that makes me happy.
Another thing that I always like to do at the end of these podcasts is also to give us a little bit of an outlook. So we got a good picture, I think, of you. We got a good picture of your journey so far. So what are your dreams, aspirations, ambitions for the future? What are things that you are still looking into taking on? What's in your future?
Well, I am actually um, going to be continuously, hopefully, forever working on my podcast, which makes me excited because I get to meet strangers, have conversations with them, and also bring light in life into the world that's really positive. It's a very positive podcast. I basically have everyone under the sun as a guest, and I ask them, have you ever witnessed or experienced something you thought was magical, mysterious, or miraculous? And how did it change your life? And I think I'm at episode 223 this week. So that's going to be an ongoing project.
Wow.
The other thing is like just bringing in play and fun and art. And so I'm in the middle of writing my Peter Rabbit series still. So that's going to continue. I'm working on a comic book right now. So that is being illustrated by the illustrator. So anything that's artistic, anything that brings fun and levity and maybe a little trickster energy into the world that's regarded as art. Um, that's part and parcel of my future. And as well, also just being mindful that I have a path to live in this life and that hopefully I can lift up and help as many people as possible in whatever way that looks like, that is what I envision as my future.
Like that's the best inspiration to create art. Whatever art it is, it should always come from a place like that and not any other motivation that people could have. No, that's a great thing. Um, yeah, I feel like that's a great place to wrap it up as well. Um, Kirsten, I really enjoyed our time. So if finally you just want to again tell the people if they want to check out any of these things that you mentioned, and if any of the stuff that we talked about are interesting to them, where can they find out more about your books, your podcast, about you? And I'll obviously put the links in the description as well so they can easily find it. But yeah, where can we find it?
Oh, yeah. So go to my website, bitesizedblessings.com, and it's BYTE, which is an homage to my science love, my love of science. So bitesizedblessings.com, and everything is there, everything under the sun. You'll find it all there.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your very interesting stories with us. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Oh, me too. Thank you for having me on. It's been, I like, can't even believe an hour's passed. It's been so fun.
Yeah, it did went by. All right. Thank you, Kirsten, and bye, everyone.
Thank you.